Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. We need to talk, Sarah remembered Mark saying to her about half a year ago, and the tough conversation that followed. Mark was a rich businessman from the South, and she'd met him and charmed him a little over a year before. Sarah had hinted that she and her husband, John, were separated and getting a divorce, even though they weren't. Mark's people quickly found out the truth. No separation had happened, and John thought they were still happily married after almost 25 years. Mark also learned that John owned a software company and had spoiled Sarah with trips and a fancy new car since their youngest child went to college 5 years ago. Now that her divorce from John was officially done, Sarah was in the elevator heading to Mark's fancy penthouse, ready to celebrate and plan their future. Going up, Sarah thought about how close she'd come to losing Mark when he found out she'd lied. She smiled, thinking her future was practically made of gold. She remembered his disappointed words. "Sarah, you lied to me. I never would have started anything with you if I knew you were still married. My family is very traditional, especially my mom, and they'd be upset. Plus, my business clients are conservative, and they'd leave me if they found out I was with a married woman. My business would suffer badly." "Mark," Sarah replied, tears in her eyes, "I never meant to trick you or let you down. I don't love John anymore, but leaving him would crush him. He's a good man and a good dad to our kids, Mike and Lisa. I just didn't want to hurt him. I love you, Mark, and I want us to be together. But we haven't really talked about what you want long-term. If this is just fun for you, tell me. If you want us to be serious, I'll tell John the first want a divorce, even though it will hurt him a lot. Of course, I love you, Sarah, and I do want us to be together. That's why I had my people check things out, to make sure we could move forward." Mark then pulled out a ring box from his expensive suit pocket. He slowly opened it, showing a huge, beautiful diamond ring. "I already bought this from my jeweler in Paris and was going to ask you to marry me. But I can't do that now since you're still married," Mark said sadly, closing the box. "Mark, I know I messed up, and I'm sorry. I just didn't want to hurt John unless I absolutely had to. Like I said, he's a good guy, and we had many good years until about 5 years ago when we just drifted apart. I care about John, but I don't love him anymore. I love you, Mark. If you want to break up because I lied about being divorced, I'll understand, even though it will break my heart. But if you give me another chance, I'll gladly leave John, especially if it means we can be together. I also promise never to lie to you again or do anything to make you doubt my love or honesty. Sarah, maybe it's a mistake, but I'm willing to give you another chance. But no more lies. This is it." "Oh, thank you, Mark. I love you so much," Sarah cried, rushing into his arms. After some passionate kissing, they went to the bedroom of the fancy hotel suite where Mark was staying and made love. Sarah always thought Mark was amazing in bed, like a professional musician playing her body perfectly. Later, lying naked in each other's arms, Mark continued, "I think we need to take things slow for a bit, at least until you and John are truly separated and the divorce papers are filed. I'll miss us being intimate, but we've been lucky no one, especially my rivals, has found out about us. Like I said, my family and my business would suffer a lot. My people found out that while John is doing okay, a costly divorce could ruin his software business. I would feel terrible if I caused his divorce and hurt the business he's worked so hard for. From what I know, you two didn't have a prenup since John started his business after you were married. So, I need you to be reasonable with your divorce demands." "I'm not so sure, Mark. I was a good wife to John for almost 25 years, so I deserve a fair settlement. I don't know if John has enough money to give me a fair settlement without me taking part of his business. I need to be taken care of, and I'll be single for a while until we get married. What if you change your mind? Then I'll be left with nothing." "Of course, Sarah, I understand. Maybe we can set something up to protect you financially no matter what. For example, I'd be happy to have a contract that gives you a certain amount of money, say $1 million, when you file for divorce and another $1 million when it's final. From what I know, $2 million is way more than you'd get if you fought John in court. You know I'm very rich. I can make you comfortable now and even more so after we're married. Sarah remembered seeing a financial report on Mark's desk in one of his hotel rooms about a month into their affair. She'd been curious and quickly looked through it, shocked to see his investments were worth almost $100 million. Wow! His money and his good looks made him irresistible. Her husband John seemed poor and boring in comparison. She'd first met Mark at a fancy hotel bar when she was out with friends. She thought he looked like he'd walked out of a magazine. His perfect appearance made her briefly wonder if he was gay. With her wedding rings in her purse, Sarah started talking to him and ended up having a passionate night in his presidential suite. John was out of town on business. Mark traveled a lot for work, often to Austin, Texas, where Sarah and John had lived for 25 years after graduating from college there. When Mark was in town, Sarah would make up excuses to John about why she needed to go out, comforting a friend, visiting family, a trip with girlfriends, etc. Continuing their conversation, Sarah asked, "What should I do after I file for divorce? Should I ask John to leave? Or can I move in with you? I'd love to live with you, Sarah, but until your divorce is final, it's too risky. My rivals would use it against me, and my traditional supporters would turn away. I don't want to see John kicked out of his home, especially since we plan to be together once your divorce is done. If you like the contract idea, how about I add that I'll pay up to $5,000 a month for your apartment and living costs until then? John doesn't even have to know that our contract is why you're being so easy on him in the divorce. Having a friendly divorce would probably also keep your kids happier with you. I wouldn't want them to be too angry at you for divorcing their dad. That sounds okay. You mentioned John and I not having a prenup, and you're right. I guess you'd want us to have one before we get married?" she asked. "Unfortunately, yes. I think my company's board would insist on it. Actually, a prenup is required for all board members and upper management. But I can pull up the draft my lawyers were working on for when I thought I might propose to you this weekend. I think you'll find it's very generous." The next day, after breakfast in the room, Mark showed Sarah the prenup on his computer, and it was indeed very generous. It said Sarah would get $10 million if they divorced for any reason, plus another $1 million for each year they were married. So, if they were married for 5 years, she'd get $15 million. Sarah noticed it didn't have any harsh rules if she cheated on Mark. While she didn't plan on it, she hadn't exactly been faithful to John. Her affairs had started around the time Mike went off to school. Sarah was sad and bored and joined a fancy gym. Always attractive, thanks to good genes, her workouts and focus on her looks soon made her even more stunning. Her first affair was with a very hot, younger personal trainer at the gym. But she found out he was bragging to his friends about sleeping with her with all the details. So, she quickly ended it and decided to be more careful. At the gym, Sarah met some younger single women who liked going to fancy hotel bars to meet men. She and John didn't hang out in those places, so she was sure none of their friends would see her flirting and dancing with rich businessmen. She and her new friends mostly had one-night stands, sometimes seeing a particularly attractive guy again. The men were almost always from out of town, so she didn't worry about running into them when she was with John. Then she met Mark, and he swept her off her feet. As she expected, John was hurt when Sarah said she wanted a divorce. He went through all the stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and finally acceptance. Sarah was glad John accepted it quickly, realizing their marriage was over and his wife didn't want him anymore. He was also relieved that Sarah didn't try to take a big chunk of his software company. Over the years, Sarah had barely paid attention to John's business and didn't even really know what kind of software he made. They agreed Sarah would take her personal things, clothes, a few pieces of furniture, her car, and $100,000 in cash. Sarah explained she had fallen in love with a very wealthy man, and neither she nor her new love wanted to hurt John financially. John said his lawyer had told him to agree to the very generous settlement offer. As it was an uncontested divorce, the case went through the court system quickly. The elevator dinged, and she arrived at the top floor of the 50-story luxury hotel. There were only 2 suites on the top floor. Mark had left her a key card at the front desk. She used it to open the door, excited to be reunited with her true love. Entering the suite, Sarah saw Mark and another handsome man sitting on large, fancy couches in the living area. The other man was just as good-looking as Mark. Mark stood up and greeted her. "Welcome, darling. I want you to meet my partner, Chris. We've already opened champagne to celebrate your final divorce," Mark said with a smile. Sarah said hello to Chris and took a glass, clinking it with Mark's and Chris's. Mark toasted to future adventures, and Sarah and Chris repeated the phrase. After taking a drink, Sarah asked, "Chris, are you one of Mark's business partners? He hasn't mentioned you to me yet." "Well, you could say we were somewhat business partners," Chris joked, "except our business was on the set of adult films, where we first felt a strong attraction and later developed a deep connection." Sarah almost dropped her glass. "What the hell is he talking about, Mark? Is this some kind of joke? It's not funny." "Well, I'm afraid it's no joke. Just like you lied to me, I also lied to you. Chris and I moved to Austin from San Francisco a few years ago. We were both gay adult film stars, and that's how we met. But we were both unhappy with that life and wanted something different. So we moved here for a fresh start. Unfortunately, when we came to Austin, we were pretty broke, so we didn't have many options." "Wait," Sarah almost shouted. "You're really gay? How is that possible? We were together so many times, and you were an amazing lover. I can't believe this." "Yes, Sarah. I knew I was gay since I was 11. When we moved to Austin, I was doing some temporary work for John's company, and we got to know each other. He really is a great guy." Sarah had a bad feeling. "You knew John before we met?" "Well, of course I did. I couldn't have afforded these luxury suites without John paying for them. John and I became friends. I told him that Chris and I had been adult film stars and appeared in many movies. Later, John confided in us that he knew you were cheating on him, which broke his heart." Sarah interrupted. "Wait a minute. You're not broke, you're rich. I saw the report from your financial advisors that you left by your computer once when we were together. It said you were worth almost $100 million. That report looked real. Was it fake?" "No, that report isn't fake. But it's not mine. It's John's. He had one of his software designers make a fake first page with my information. Otherwise, the report was real," Mark replied. "Wait just a minute," Sarah said. "Are you saying that my ex-husband is worth over $100 million, and all I got was the $2 million and some living expenses you gave me, my car, and the small amount from John in our divorce settlement?" "Well, I didn't exactly give you anything. John actually paid the money. Chris and I don't have that kind of money," Mark replied. "But why did you do this to me? I thought you loved me," Sarah exclaimed, feeling her world collapse. "How could you make love to me like you did when you don't even like women? Remember, I was an adult film star, so I'm pretty good at acting, especially during sex. John agreed to partner with Chris and me to open our own art gallery here in town, with John as a silent partner, paying for everything. John has been so generous and kind to us. We figured that helping him end his marriage with a cheating wife was the least we could do. If it's any comfort, I do feel a little guilty for leading you on and lying to you. How did John find out I was unfaithful? I was so careful. He never said anything or showed that he knew. He's usually so direct. I'm shocked he didn't confront me if he knew what I was doing," Sarah questioned. "John told us that a personal trainer from your gym told him about your affair after you broke it off with him. I guess the guy was pretty upset with you. John didn't believe him at first, but your trainer friend had taken some video of you two and showed it to John. After that, John had you watched when you went out looking for men with your girlfriends, so he knew what you were up to. He figured if you fell for me and I seemed rich, you'd divorce him, and maybe he could make the financial fallout a lot less painful and save his business." Chris then added, "We've been working together on John's marriage project, as well as on our art gallery for some time now. Mark and I were both at the bar that night when you came up and seduced him. Don't worry, I wasn't hurt that you didn't pick me. I also wasn't jealous of the time you spent with Mark. I knew he'd never leave me for a woman. To us, this was just a job, a business deal. I knew Mark's lovemaking skills and acting talents from his years in adult films were excellent. Some straight guys do those movies because they pay well, and they call it gay for pay. I like to joke with Mark that his being with you should be called Straight for pay. Mark then continued. After the divorce, John told us he ended up spending less than $3 million on expenses and the settlement. Way less than he would have paid in a messy divorce. Maybe you should have paid more attention to John and his business. He really is a great guy. I don't understand why any wife would ever want to leave him. Sarah noticed that Mark had been gently guiding her toward the door. In a daze, she walked along, and he carefully took the suite's key card from her hand. I'd love to talk longer, but Chris and I have dinner plans with John and his girlfriend, Claire, to celebrate the final decree. He hinted that he might propose to her tonight. Claire? Claire Miller? She used to be one of my close friends until she divorced her husband for cheating and moved out of the neighborhood. I didn't even know John was seeing anyone, Sarah said confusedly, remembering her strikingly beautiful former neighbor. Sarah remembered Claire being one of the prettiest and nicest women in the neighborhood. John told us he ran into Claire at a coffee shop shortly after he found out you were being unfaithful. Claire was a shoulder for John to cry on and really helped him through a difficult time. Things just progressed from there. She really is a wonderful person and absolutely beautiful. Chris and I really like her. Well, I really need to get going. We don't want to be late for our dinner, Mark said, slightly emphasizing the last word as he opened the door, inviting Sarah to leave. Goodbye, Sarah. I actually didn't hate our time together, even though I'm not into women. I really do hope you find what you're looking for, he said as she heard the door to the suite quietly close behind her. Straight for pay, Sarah muttered to herself. I'm such a complete idiot. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.